The fire spider, a dangerous fusion of creepy, crawly cave beast and highly combustible matter coming together to form a creature you wouldn't want to get on the bad side of. But is a thing even possible? Who or what could create such a fearsome fiery beast? Well, let's find out. If you've spent even a short amount of time in the world of Minecraft, then you would have no doubt run into one of the varying species of hostile giant spiders that roam the overworld. While not always prone to attacking immediately, most spiders will only become hostile once the sun starts to set and night begins. But usually, any of the more arachnophobic adventurers can avoid them if they keep well enough away. Spiders don't attack unless they are provoked first, but could a spider ever be combined with fire? It does seem unlikely at first. After all, fire can be a useful tool to keep most hostile mobs at bay. Some even catch flames in direct sunlight. So if you're ever short on weapons and too far away from a safe bed, then waiting for the day to break might be your best option when there are hordes of zombies on your tail. Then again, if you've ever made the daring journey through a portal to the Nether, then you'll know there are some mobs in Minecraft who can wield the power of fire. Of course, there's the blazes. These floating tornadoes of flame and red-hot blaze rods are known to hurl fireballs at any unsuspecting adventurers, and if you aren't careful, you might get your armor singed. So, maybe the fire spider is a combination of spider and another creature like a blaze that can control fire. That's one possibility, but to find our answers, it's best to go searching for the truth ourselves instead of wildly speculating. So pack everything you might need for the long road ahead. Make sure you've stocked up on food and got your best sword at the ready, because we're going spider hunting. If you search through enough nests, venture deep enough into the right cobweb-covered caves, and tangle with the most tenacious tarantulas, then you might just come across the truth about the fire spider. Stuck in the depths, hiding at the back of a nest, filled with plenty of creepy crawlies, is a skeleton. He's been tangled up there like a fly for so long that there's nothing left of him but bones. But if you manage to deal with the cave spiders nearby and cut him loose, you might find that this skeleton isn't like any others in the overworld. For one, unlike the other undead mobs you might have encountered, this skeleton is actually friendly. And for another, he can still talk. Perhaps if you're able to free him and break the news to him about how long he's trapped gently, then he might just tell you the tale of how he once went face to face with the legendary fire spider. The skeleton remembers flailing his mighty sword against a slew of attacks, flames so hot that it could have burned right through stone, and a giant creature at the heart of the cave. Many before him had already fallen, facing off against the fire spider. But that hadn't deterred him. He had fought hard like the noble warrior he'd been back when he was still alive. But soon, even he had succumbed to the fiery fury of the combustible creepy crawly. It had all begun not long before, when the warrior was just a simple wanderer. He would travel from village to village, offering to help out with whatever people needed assistance with. Sometimes it was simple tasks, like helping them finish building houses, or chopping down trees and gathering wood for resources. It was rare that the warrior ever had to lift his sword in the name of helping others, and while many would consider that a good thing, he couldn't help but find himself getting bored very quickly. If nobody in the village needed any help that involved going on dangerous quests, then the warrior usually left and ventured towards the next settlement along. He'd been traveling far and wide for a long time, a freewheeling, happy-go-lucky adventurer living off the land and seeking out his next big quest to undertake. Little did he know all his wishes for more excitement would soon be answered. Out there, in a quiet corner of the overworld, the fire spider was about to be born. Now, there was one tiny village that was quite unlike any of the others. It had been built on land with some rather strange properties. When the earliest settlers arrived there, they claimed they had been drawn to the place by the sound of strange, ethereal voices. Some said it was haunted, others thought it was just superstition. But as the years went on and the settlement grew into a village, those that lived there started to notice strange goings-on in their homes. For starters, despite being located near a rather temperate biome, the villagers living there experienced warm weather all year round. It was like days of endless warmth, no matter if it was raining elsewhere in the overworld, almost like there was constantly a fire burning nearby. Then, there were of course the local legends about ghostly voices. Nobody could ever quite figure out where they were coming from, but these tales did inspire many of the villagers to take up the study of a new phenomenon, magic. These early adopters of magic became the village mystics, and over the years began a proud tradition of practicing spells. Most were used for healing and protection, although some had dabbled in transfiguration, transforming one thing into another, not something a novice mystic should ever attempt. But the village's biggest magical breakthrough by far was when the mystics made a remarkable discovery: the source of the local voices of legends. They came to the realization that these ethereal whispers weren't ghosts, nor were they the wind moving through the trees. They were sounds coming from another world. The mystics had come to believe that there was another realm, a completely different plane of existence that existed alongside their own. They couldn't see it, but it was their working theory that the village had unknowingly been built on a fault line, a weak point between these two dimensions. That was why they often heard voices. It was the sounds of the other people living in this alternate realm. The village mystics worked hard to come up with a way to gain access to this realm, using all their knowledge of magic to come up with a way to prove their theory, and before long they had cracked it by constructing a frame of pure obsidian blocks and setting the space in the center. Along with flint and steel, they were able to create a kind of doorway between the worlds, a portal. Although the last thing any of the mystics expected was what would come next. From out of their portal emerged a group of scary-looking creatures, part man and part pig. These piglins came from a space called the Nether, a place with its own environment and ecosystem. There was a lot of fire and lava in that dimension, and that had also been the reason the village had been so hot all through the year. Some of the excess heat from the Nether had come through the fault line and kept the place pretty toasty. Despite their somewhat frightening appearance, the piglin people had come in peace. Over time, the people of the village struck a pact with the piglins, and they began to trade with the Nether, exchanging resources and knowledge for the benefit of all. But by the time the warrior arrived at the village, things weren't looking so wholesome and idyllic anymore. When the warrior approached the village, he was pretty surprised by how different this place was compared to the various other townships he'd visited. There were plenty of piglin guards around who had been given diamond armor and weapons crafted by the village's best blacksmiths. They'd even used netherite from their home dimension to upgrade these too, sporting tough netherite swords and head-to-toe sets of netherite armor. Lots of the homes around had been built with extra netherrack supports, a soft stone that was abundant within the nether. It had led to some of the native warped and crimson fungus from that fiery realm to also grow there. In fact, the whole village looked like it had almost been infected by the nether, as it had spread out of the nether portal and coated the surrounding area. Somebody caught the warrior's attention as he strolled through the town. A number of piglin guards had been giving him a strange look as he arrived, and he just noticed that there were more piglins wandering around than villagers, who all looked to be cowering in their homes. The person who hushedly called the warrior over introduced himself as the arch mystic of the village, one of the original magical scholars who'd been responsible for discovering the Nether. And as he hurriedly explained, it was apparently a discovery he deeply regretted. "We were wrong to trust these animals," he whispered with urgency. "We traded with them, made deals because we thought they were here to be our allies. But now they have taken control of our home. They police the village in their armor. We can't fight back against them. And what's worse, they're keeping a monster in a cave not far from here. It's to make us all afraid of them. Please, warrior, I must call on you or help." Naturally, this was all pretty concerning, and looking around at how few people were walking freely about town, the warrior had every reason to believe the arch-mystic's story. When he asked about this monster that the piglins were keeping nearby, the arch-mystic described it in horrifying detail. Apparently, the piglins had taken an interest in transfiguration magic since arriving in the overworld, and the mystics had been more than happy to share their knowledge with them. However, they warned the curious piglins that this was an extremely advanced form of magic, not to be trifled with by beginners. Only, as it turned out, the piglins were no novices to the ways of magic. Long ago, in their own realm, they had discovered a way to create eternal fire. By setting blocks of netherrack or magma blocks alight, the piglins could wield flames that burned and burned forever and that would never be extinguished. And now, with the secrets of transfiguration magic revealed to them, they wanted to use that to create a monster. The piglins had never seen spiders before in their own realm, but upon seeing them in the overworld, they quickly decided that these eight-legged creatures would be the perfect form for their eternally burning beast. So they constructed a spider-shaped body out of netherrack blocks in the middle of the village while the villagers and mystics slept peacefully. Then, once their creation was complete, they lured a spider into the township. The piglins' own magic users, who'd now learned the ways of transfiguration, set the stone spider alight and cast a spell to combine it with the single spider they had captured. By the time the residents of the village awoke, they were met with the flaming sight of a gigantic fire spider. The creature was enormous and armored. The piglins had covered its skin in pure netherite, protecting it from damage. The netherrack below burned with eternal fire, making the combustible creepy crawly glow with the orange flicker of flames, as well as making it not only resistant to fire, but strengthened by it too. To make matters worse, the fire spider could even launch fireballs like other mobs from the nether, a power it quickly demonstrated. It burned down some local houses commanded by its piglin creators. They just wanted to make a statement, a show of the firepower their burning beast was capable of, and with that, they sent it off to hide in a cave so that the villagers would live in constant fear of the piglins, commanding their new fire spider to attack. The warrior had been searching for a true adventure like this, and now was his chance. If he took up his sword and slayed the fearsome fire spider, then the piglins would be left without their precious protector, and that meant they could be driven back to the nether. Or, failing that, the warrior thought he could at least destroy the nether portal and drive them from the village, leaving the piglins stranded in the overworld and cut off from their hellish home realm. But the warrior was getting ahead of himself. First, he needed to beat the eternally burning beast. He accepted the arch-mystic's quest and followed his directions into a cave near the town. As soon as the warrior ventured inside, he noticed the intense, scorching heat emanating from within. There were pools of lava bubbling and boiling all around, no doubt left by the fire spider, melting the stone all around it. Taking great care, the warrior hopped across a series of stone blocks precariously placed in the lava. He leaped from one to another, timing his jumps with great caution. One wrong step, and he'd fall into the lava, but his landings must have made too much noise because it didn't take long for 8 fiery legs to come slowly creeping out of the dark cave. Its many eyes burned with the intense glow of its eternal flames as the fire spider spotted the warrior that had come to slay it, or to try and slay it at least. The battle was as fearsome as the flames the fire spider could hurtle through the air. The warrior had to dodge out of the path of the oncoming fireballs and avoid falling into the lava at the same time. He managed to get close enough to the enormous, light arachnid to take some swings with his mighty diamond blade, but the netherite coating of the fire spider protected it. The fire spider launched another fireball at the warrior, causing him to jump from one of the stone blocks to another to avoid getting burned. But then, just as he was about to land safely, he missed, and the warrior fell into the lava. He was set ablaze, defeated by the very creature he'd been sent to slay. All that remained of the once noble warrior was his skeleton and the tale he has to tell. And for what became of the fire spider itself, that's still a mystery. Maybe the piglins returned to the nether with it, and it's now safely surrounded by more magma where it belongs. Or perhaps it's still out there in the overworld somewhere, just waiting for the command of its masters to start unleashing its flames on unsuspecting villagers. Whatever became of the fire spider, we'd maybe advise you bring a couple of buckets filled with water on your adventures just in case.